evening, everyone. It is Thursday, March 26th. It is 5:30 p.m. and I am calling the Salem Area Mass Transit District Board of Directors meeting to order. Will the clerk of the board please note attendance for a quorum? Okay, and that brings us to our safety minute. General Manager.
All right, thank you. So this evening's safety message will be presented by Financial Services Manager Tim Reedy.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. March is Workplace Eye Wellness Month, and there's a lot of tips that they're recommending, especially for those that are working in office settings. It says you should place your screen 20 to 26 inches away from your eyes and a little below your eye level. Use a document holder placed next to your screen. It should be close enough so you don't have to swing your head back and forth for constantly change your eye focus. Change your lighting to a lower glare and harsh reflections. Glare filters over your digital screen can also help. Get a chair that you can adjust so you can fix your eye line. Choose screens that can tilt and swivel. A keyboard that you could adjust is also helpful. Computer glasses with yellow tinted lenses that block blue light can help ease digital eye strain by increasing contrast. And anti-reflective lenses reduce glare and increase contrast and also block blue light from digital devices. And that concludes my safety minute.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And most of us up here wear glasses, so I think we all really thank you. Okay, and then changes to the agenda. We are adding an item to our action item, so there will be a 6C, and it is around facilities, fluorescent and lighting replacement. Other than that, I don't believe we have any other announcements. So that will bring us to our presentation, recognition of Million Mile Transit Operator. General Manager.
Great, thank you. I'll ask Chief Dietz to please come forward and make the presentation.
Thank you, President Pressy and members of the board. I get to come to you again tonight to recognize two more amazing individuals who have achieved the Million Mile Operator designation. So for a reminder, to achieve a million mile designation, you must work 1,600 hours in every year within a 12 consecutive year period without a preventable accident. So it sounds easy, but it is incredibly difficult to do. And we have two more outstanding operators that we get to recognize with this, bringing our total since we opened this program to 10 operators achieving 1 million miles. Well, 9 at 1 million and 1 at 2 million. So first up, he wrote me a story, so bear with me. Pavel Kuzmenko has dedicated more than 2 decades to public service as a transit professional with Cherriots, demonstrating reliability, leadership, and deep commitment to his community. He began his career in January 2004 as a transit operator and quickly built a reputation for professionalism, safety, and a willingness to support his team wherever he was needed. For many years, Pavel worked on the extra board, stepping in to cover open shifts and absences across the system. His flexibility and strong work ethic ensured that service remained reliable for riders and that fellow operators had the support they needed. His ability to adapt to changing situations and maintain high standards of service made him a valued member, still a valued member, of the Cherriots team. In March of 2015, Pavel was promoted to training instructor, where he shared his knowledge and experience with new operators, helping prepare the next generation of transit professionals. Continuing to grow as a leader, he was promoted again in February of 2022 to transportation lead, further expanding his role in supporting daily operations and mentoring staff. Today, after 22 years with Cherriots, Pavel continues to exemplify dedication to the mission of public transit. Over the years, the greatest satisfaction he has found in his work comes from recognizing and responding to the needs of passengers and coworkers while maintaining a high level of reliability and safety. While he has chosen his own schedule over the past 3 years, he remains ready to assist by covering open work whenever needed, reflecting the same spirit of teamwork and service that has defined his career since the very beginning. In his free time, Pavel enjoys camping in an RV with his family, making the most of opportunities to travel, relax, and create lasting memories together. And while he is proud of his journey so far, Pavel jokingly notes that he still has one career goal left. Might get a chance. Someday, he wishes to finish his career as the general manager of Cherriots. Please consider him. Pavel is joined with his wife, Marina, and so please help me congratulate Pavel Kuzmenko.
Marina, do you want to come up?
So also, as a reminder, the Million Mile Club has their very own jackets. No one else in the district has these black bomber jackets with the Cherriots logo and then the Million Mile seal with a rocker panel that signifies each million miles that they achieve. He'll have a reserved parking spot at Del Webb that he'll get to park in probably Monday, and a $1,000 cash bonus for his efforts.
Thank you. I'll just hang out up here for the next one.
All right, thank you. So our next amazing operator is David Nichols Alarcon. He started driving for Cherriots in September of 2011 as a transit operator. During his time at Cherriots, David was a transit operator instructor from 2014 to 2019. And interestingly, he shared, he started his driving career in 1987 when he enlisted in the U.S. Army at the age of 19. For David's 4 years of service, he drove an M1A2 Abrams main battle tank, that's a mouthful, in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. David was even caught on camera by CNN News driving across the Saudi Arabian desert headed to the Kuwait border. David also had the distinguished privilege of serving on the 2nd Armored Division Honor Guard for 1 year. David has driven some kind of commercial or military vehicle for 35 years of his last 39 years. He's stuck in traffic, but David was going to be joined, and soon will be, by his husband Alejandro. But please help me congratulate David Alarcon, Nichols Alarcon.
Let's do one more.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much to our Million Mile drivers and their families, because we know that it's the families that really help them stay focused and safe on the road. And also, thank you, Tom, for sharing those wonderful stories with us. And I also just wanted to note very briefly that I'm very proud of the organization that Cherriots is, not just for the excellence in safety, but I feel like I run into a veteran every time I turn the corner at Cherriots, and I'm really proud of that too. Thank you so much. Okay, this brings us to our public comment portion. And we have allotted time on our agenda for members of the public to provide comment to the board on items related to the district. And I know that we received an email from Tyler McCulley, and so the board all has had copies of that. Do we have anyone online, on the phone, via carrier pigeon? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Next is our consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull any item from our consent calendar? Seeing none, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
We have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously by those present. And that brings us to our action items. Item 6A, adopt resolution 2026-07, reaffirming our TAM plan. General Manager.
Yeah, I'll ask Chief Dietz to please come back and make the presentation.
Good evening again, President Hinojosa-Presi, members of the board. Tonight, I come before you again to present or ask for reaffirmation of our transit asset management plan, reaffirming that plan. So as a refresher, the transit asset management plan is really kind of it is made by the FTA to make sure that we're taking care of federally funded assets. Here at Cherriots, I will echo President Hinojosa-Presi's words. I'm proud of how we take care of our equipment, our buildings, and our staff. But this plan actually holds us accountable to the Federal Transit Administration. So while you have the full plan in your packet, including all attachments and appendices, note that the format of the plan is now accessible per federal regulation. The appendices and attachments are not yet accessible, but they will be when we next visit, which will be next year. So the staff recommends that the board adopt the resolution number 2026-07, reaffirming the district's TAM plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yes, Director Carney.
Thank you, President Hinojosa-Presi. I was noticing on these first few pages after your memo where we're looking at the Del Webb Facilities Operations Building, Maintenance Building, Fuel Island, et cetera, there are times when it looks like the FTA guidance is telling us we can round up. And then there are times where it looks like it's asking us to round down, even though I want to round up. Is there a method to that FTA guidance?
Thank you for the question, Director Carney. I wish I had an answer to that. I do not.
Thank you.
We'll shake our magic 8-ball that's connected to the FTA, and we'll probably find something later.
So if I may, President Hinojosa-Presi, the one thing I neglected to mention is the plan itself is the plan. What changed, where adjustments were made, were to our term rating scale, and that's where we rate almost every aspect of every building that's on our property. And we do have some state of good repair items that we're in the works for the FY27 capital plan that will address those, but those rating scores did lower, and that's why we had to adjust the term rating score.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know that this is some light reading. And for those not joining us in the public, this is like over 200 pages. Okay, so I move that the board adopt resolution number 2026-07, reaffirming the district's transit asset management plan.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we'll move into action item 6B, approve general manager job description. And I was told I can't go onto the witness stand to present, but I'm going to pass it over to the general manager.
I will be happy to run through the details of the action item. So tonight, it's being asked of the board to adopt a revised general manager job description. So as you all know, I've submitted my notice of intent to retire in July of 2026.
Boo.
Yeah, but in order to properly recruit for a new general manager, the district has issued a request for qualifications -001 to select a firm to proposals, and the source evaluation committee is reviewing those proposals. We hope to have some direction next week. However, in preparation for the process, once that firm is on board, there are several steps that need to be accomplished prior to the ability for the board to meet an executive session to discuss the hiring of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. ORS 192.660-2A allows for a governing body to hold executive sessions. However, 192.660 7 has some exceptions that you must accomplish before you could talk about the recruitment of a general manager. That includes that the public body has advertised the vacancy, which we will do once we have a search firm on hand. The public body has adopted regular hiring procedures, which we'll work with in conjunction with the recruitment firm. And D, in the case of the chief executive officer, the governing body has adopted hiring standards, criteria, and policy directives in meetings open to the public, in which the public has had the opportunity to comment on standards and criteria. The criteria is the job description, and the job description was updated last summer as part of a district-wide job description update project. It was issued to all of you at the work session for review and comments, and we have in your packet, at your table, some proposed revisions based on those comments and a review from legal counsel. And I'd like to walk through those now. So you'll see the red line copy. One change is under additional essential duties and responsibility is just some language added there. So the new bullet point would read, develop and promote a positive working atmosphere for district employees and clearly define expectations. If you move to page 3 on minimum qualifications, the removal of bullet number 3 concerning a valid Oregon driver's license. Under physical requirements, under bullet 1, kind of modernize the language where it states that the physical requirements requires the applicant or the candidate to regularly operate a computer and other office productivity machinery. Bullet number 2 is modified to state person must be able to stand, sit, see, hear, talk, use hands to type, handle or fill tools or controls, and use hands and arms to reach with or without a reasonable accommodation. And modifying of bullet 3 to occasionally lift or move up to 25 pounds around the office or facility for various needs. So we did have these reviewed by legal counsel, and they're supportive of those. And so tonight, the opportunity is for you to discuss those changes, any other proposed revisions. Our legal counsel is on hand if there's any questions that we may get a little sticky on. Ultimately, with the goal and the action item is really to adopt a revised general manager job description.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the board? Yes, Director Carney.
Thank you, President Hinojos Pressy. I don't know what kind of productivity machinery is available. Is it all just hardware?
Computer, I use a calculator, some people use adding machine. It could be any other office type of equipment, yeah.
Yeah, the term machinery sort of conjures machines.
Computer is a machine, calculator is a machine.
It's, yes, or we could say office productivity robots, since they're all robots. But I thought maybe office productivity hardware, wait, but I'm not wed to it.
Okay.
Comments.
Director Davidson?
Thank you, President Host Pressey. First, I have to apologize that I was not present for the work session discussion of this. I have some serious concerns about the knowledge, skills, and ability section. We are putting a lot of emphasis on prior transit experience, and I don't think that that is a requirement. So Mark Ash, for example, who was here last night prior to serving as the CEO of the Rochester Public Transit Agency, had no prior transit experience. And he did a phenomenal job there. I don't think that is a requirement. I think that is a nice to have. But if we want somebody who can approach things outside of the box, I think we're creating a box here that we may or may not want. It's not something I want, but I may be in the minority there as a board member. I have a few other things, but I can maybe start there and see if you want to have a discussion on that.
Yeah, I think contract negotiation, property and lease management, and government finance mechanisms are preferable. And then also there's like the working with U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration.
Yeah, I might say that this whole section is preferable.
Okay.
Yeah, preferred, not preferable.
I mean, I feel strongly for someone that has skills in labor relations and collective bargaining, contract negotiation, as well as strategic planning. Also probably prior experiencing and working for like boards, commissions, or councils of elected appointed officials, I mean, is preferred.
The document struck me as organized quite strangely because we intersperse preferred things with
Preferable.
required. Well, no, we have required language with preferred language.
Yeah, you're right.
Whereas at least what I'm accustomed to seeing is a section of these are the requirements and then these are the nice to haves. And we attempt to do that at other parts, but then we intersperse them.
I like, oh, man.
Go ahead, Director
Are we
Duncan.
speaking freely or are we asking? Okay. I like keeping, so I'm just kind of going through and highlighted where the items that are preferred, comprehensive knowledge of. And I think that should be required, is even if you have not had background in transit, if you're gonna come in and be the executive director, then you need to have at least comprehensive knowledge of, even if you studied before being here. So I think that I can get behind splitting it up, but I mean, I think that we kind of capture what you're asking for here, unless there's more that you want to go in on in this bottom section where it's the extensive knowledge of this kind of area towards the bottom here.
Certainly the extensive knowledge. I'm even balking at the comprehensive knowledge of routing and scheduling. We're hiring for a general manager, and we have the benefit of having a public transit agency that is of a size where we have a chief planning and development officer, we have a deputy general manager, a chief operating officer, and I would expect that this new general manager works in concert with them, so they do not need to have expertise in all of those fields.
I can get behind that.
In my mind, we need a strategic visionary leader of the agency that, if they have these skills, yeah, great. But by limiting ourselves to those, I think we're painting ourselves in a corner that we may not like.
I don't want to discourage potentially like alternative candidates who might be a good fit for us over time, and I agree with that, for sure. I can't tell you how many times I haven't applied for a job, because like, I
Right.
just don't fit too many of these requirements, even though I might be able to be quite proficient at it, so I agree with that.
Okay, so, making note of the fact that you weren't able to participate in this conversation during the work session, could you give me maybe like the specifics of what we're feeling need to be like required? So, and then what are the nice to haves? So like, just give me what's required, and then I would assume that everything else would be like a nice to have.
Yeah, I think the essential duties and responsibilities are the, anything that is directly tied to that, I think I'd be comfortable with, you know what? No, I'm not. Because I take a different approach to you, Board President, on the navigating union negotiations, because, and Alan, or General Manager, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the last few negotiations, you haven't been directly involved in those, because we have competent executive leadership that can navigate those.
Yeah, correctly, I'm not sitting at the table, but I'm the one in the providing guidance and direction to the negotiating team and kind of the last decision maker on
Yeah.
those things that before we come to a tentative agreement. So, while you're not necessarily, to have the ability to do that, it would be wise to have been at the table at some point in your career to understand the impacts and ramifications. But you're really leading the negotiating team.
And as a labor advocate, I will say that especially if you're stepping into a CEO role and have not had previous experience, it's a steep learning curve.
And it does say preferred.
Okay, then I'm good with that.
So, right now, it seems like we need to clean up some of this language. Maybe get a little bit more clear on like what is preferred, what is required. And then we can come back at the next board meeting. Should we also provide maybe like written comments on suggestions, or should we continue kind of nitpicking this?
Well, I prefer, what we can take is the intent and the comments we heard tonight, and if you have any specifics, please get them to me, and then we'll review them with legal counsel and bring back a revised version next month.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah,
before we
go ahead, Director
end
Duncan.
this one, I didn't turn on my microphone, I'm sorry, guys. No, I brought this up at the work session, and we got the new language, and I wanted to have a chance to talk about the physical requirements, because I appreciate that we did revise a little bit, but I'd still like to challenge a little bit here. I feel like I didn't push hard enough on this the first time, so I'm kind of trying to make amends. So I first want to say I appreciate that we eliminated the requirement for a driver's license. I think that's outdated. I agree with the operates a computer and similar. I think that's fine. The issue that I have issues with, the bullet point I have issues with is the person must be able to stand, sit, hear, talk, use hands to type hands, or feel tools, controls, and use hands and arms to reach with or without a reasonable accommodation. What is a reasonable accommodation to stand for someone who normally cannot stand?
That's probably.
I hate to put could you chime in for us, Jean
Yeah,
Black?
and there's
from-
all sorts of reasonable, can I just comment on that,
Please.
Alan?
Yes, please.
Yeah, there's all sorts of reasonable accommodations that you can provide for somebody to be able to stand if, if they can't stand at all, then a reasonable accommodation is for them to sit in a wheelchair. I mean, that's a reasonable accommodation. But if they can stand and they need to stand, sit, then there are mechanisms that you can get to allow somebody to stand for periods of time. So,
I think that, may I? We have been very clear of what we want this person to be able to execute. I don't see why we need to dictate how they do that. I would love to eliminate this entire bullet point. I'd love to know what is so necessary of this bullet point that couldn't be just, you have to be able to perform the duties here. like, there are people that use wheelchairs, there are people that use all sorts of different devices to be able to, and I don't want someone to not apply because they're worried about going through a process and having to justify at the end all of their accommodations. I have friends that regularly don't even try to apply for jobs because they're worried of the backlash or getting to the end of the process and only to find out the accommodations won't be made, et cetera. We've been clear what we want them to do. They have to be able to perform the duties. I just don't see why we need to tell them how.
Yeah, I didn't put the bullet point in, I just put in the reasonable accommodation part of it, so it's totally up to you all on whether you want that bullet point in or not.
Thank you. I would love to eliminate this bullet point entirely, if that's something we could discuss with the board.
I'm good with that.
I think personally, I mean, I'm open to discussion. I also want to make sure that, like, just with legal counsel, that we get a chance to make sure that that is okay. The only reason that I'm hesitant is because I do know if for some reason someone is to experience a workplace injury that is kind of related to what we see here, there could just be like some interesting legal situation that we could find ourselves in because it was not previously stated in the job description. So that's my only apprehension.
And I also don't think I think this is a common thing that you see in job descriptions. I think that you probably could get an applicant that you could have a blind person apply and they could probably do the job with a reasonable accommodation. So I don't think if you have reasonable accommodation in there, it necessarily precludes people from looking at it and thinking they could do it or not. Personally, as an attorney, I would rather see that in there than out of there, only because I don't think this precludes people from applying. And I do think that you're saying what an essential function of the job is, and this may come back to haunt you later on if you get somebody that can't perform the essential job functions and you need to be able to take action. Your essential job functions are dictated by what your job description says, how you describe it in your job description. So that's how I'm looking at it.
I think that definitely I would hesitate for us to fall into a place where it is common and that we see everywhere. But I do hear the call of making sure that this is like language that is more indicative of our openness to hire someone that may not be fully able-bodied, because we don't want to create any artificial restrictions, whether it be in someone else's mind or what have you. So I think if you feel comfortable with it, maybe we can have sort of like a legal review on what is the best way to identify some specific required aspects of the job that can also be written in a way that does not seem so limiting.
Potentially. I'm going to push back one more time and say that if somebody were to have a health condition that happened where they were unable to perform the duties as written, then that's what they should be terminated on, not for a disability that is physical that they incurred while on the job. That would actually put us in a legal situation. I wouldn't want to build that in. I don't understand why that would be. Like, again, the job is to do the job. I don't think it's up to us to dictate how to be doing it. I could maybe get behind the language, I mean, vague enough that, maintain physical ability to do the position, but I mean, like, that's, I kind of think, built into the essential duties and responsibilities. If you cannot accomplish the essential duties and responsibilities, then that's really what we should be judging you on, not your physical capability. And I know that this is a common thing in job descriptions, and it's a common thing that disability advocates loathe, and me being one of them. Even like the occasionally lifting up to 30 pounds, I'm glad that we've reduced that to 25. That's prevented my fiance from being able to apply for jobs more than once because she was told by a doctor not to lift more than 20 pounds. And she's a completely otherwise competent professional to be able to work in an office setting, which is what this is. So I was actually going to push back on this as well. I can't think of barely any time in the office where a general manager would need to lift something that they couldn't ask for assistance in the office. Now, if suddenly we had an office that had absolutely nobody able to lift, then maybe we would need somebody to help with that, but that very rarely happens.
I mean, I will say that we have a tiny team that puts on really wonderful events. Sometimes you have to lift some heavy things for that. But General Manager?
I don't know all the legal language, but what I think is important is understanding whether or not those reasonable accommodations need to be made, and you have a plan to address that prior to the person coming on board. If you wait till after they come on board and then you do it, there may or may not be a reasonable accommodation. I mean, generally, I think in this role there is. It's a little different than if you're a driver, but do you want to have that conversation before or after? Because depending on what that accommodation is, it may not seem like 25 pounds is a lot, but you're moving stuff around a lot. You'd maybe want to have the understanding of how that's going to happen prior to them coming on instead of it becoming after the fact.
So again, when we bring on a new employee, then normally there's, oh, I would like to have this type of chair, I would like to have this type of keyboard. I mean, anytime we bring on new staff, we often bring on new equipment that is suitable to them. I don't see how that would be any different for somebody that had disabilities who might need said accommodations, which we would be legally required to provide and does not need to be part of the job description.
I generally agree, as long as we know every single potential disability. So I'll make, what if the person can't speak? What is that reasonable accommodation going to be? If I was unable to speak, wouldn't you want to have that figured out beforehand? So and that's part of the interview. Is there any reasonable accommodations that we need to make to see if that is satisfactory?
And I think that would make sense to ask that question in an interview, like what do you need to be able to do your job well? Like what would be needed? But again, the whole question is can they perform the duties, not how they do them. That's a different question to me than a requirement.
Director Davidson?
Yeah, first I'll start with a question, which is, when will we have the firm on board?
Hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
In which case, I might request that we schedule a work session for April and have that consultant team talk us through this, because I happen to have strong opinions about this kind of stuff, but it's not like I'm an expert on national transit CEOs. Like if you required me to say what are the best 25 transit agencies in the country, I could maybe come up with 10. And like, I'm a self-identified transit nerd. So like, I am limited in what I know, and I would love an outside consultant to pose us questions of, what do you want? Why do you want it? Because until we can identify that, and I think we can only identify it in spoken conversation, I think we are...
what our hope is for our next general manager. So I think having like a more in-depth conversation on the job description.
And that's your hiring standards, yeah. And that it is coming, yeah.
Director Carney?
Thank you, President Hinojosa-Pressy. Sort of diverging just a bit and back into the more specifics of the job description, though not around the physical working conditions. Probably should have caught this earlier, but one thing that I noticed in my read today that was missing is any of the community involvement and participation that we have seen in Alan's tenure. And I'm not sure how others feel about that being a requirement of our general manager, but I think it has been a great benefit to the transit district. So something about actively representing the district in the community or serving as an ambassador for the district, and just talking about that kind of relationship. I mean, Alan has done a tremendous amount of work building these relationships, and it would make me sad to see them falter.
That's a very good point. Okay, so I think we have our direction in the sense of inclusions, cleanup, and also, yes, we will have a hiring standards conversation, but I think that we also want those hiring standards to help inform modifications to the job description. So hopefully at our upcoming work session in April, maybe we could have that conversation.
Sure.
Okay. So then we will table this item
Yes.
and move on to action item 6C, which is our facilities fluorescent lighting replacement.
And it's the Chief Deets show this evening, so I'll ask him to come back up and present the report.
Sure is.
Good evening, President Enos Pressey, members of the board. It's me again. So I
It's
come
you.
to you tonight. Shall the board authorize the general manager to amend the contract with Apex Mechanical for the installation of LED lighting at Courthouse Square and the Del Webb buildings in an amount not to exceed $158,000? So background on this is, according to an Oregon state mandate, fluorescent light bulbs need to be removed and replaced, and we're replacing them with LED fixtures. Not to get too technical, but we're going to remove the fluorescent ballasts and put in LED tubes. There are multiple temperatures of the light, so those will be gone through in the coming week. And then those will be replaced internally as well as in our yard and at Del Webb in the parking lot. So originally, the scope of the work determined that the removal of the ballasts were not included in the original agreement, and that was an additional cost, which is what is driving me to be here to ask for this amendment to the contract. The financial impact is that the cost of this will increase, and the not to exceed amount will be $158,000. So staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to amend the contract with Apex Mechanical for the installation of LED lighting with a project amount and contingency not to exceed $158,000. And to break that out further, the contract amount is $121,363. The contingency of $36,637 is exactly that, just a contingency in case we run into anything that we didn't expect. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Director Davidson.
Thank you, President. Will we be able to qualify for any Energy Trust of Oregon incentives on this?
I don't have the answer to that, but I can find out.
Okay, yeah. I simply raised the question because I believe that they would love large organizations like ours to move away from more energy-intensive lighting to less, and there often is a financial benefit there. The second question is, what is a direct wired LED system? I thought isn't everything directly wired? Or is there a wireless system out there that I'm unaware of?
I'm not aware of a wireless
Okay.
lighting system. However, so I'm going to throw some jargon at you, and I will
Please.
explain it, so bear with me. So right now, each fluorescent fixture has a ballast that controls where the tubes connect. The tubes connect into tombstones, is what they're called. Quite ghoulish. And what this does is the ballast is removed, and then instead of the wiring going into the ballast, which then distributes the power, it goes directly to the tombstone, so each LED tube is powered.
Okay.
Do we need more layman's terms than that?
No. I know what a tombstone is, obviously. Last question. Did Cherriots go with Apex because they're at the top of their field?
Okay.
I see what you did there, Director Davidson. Thank you for that.
Director Davidson is quietly censured. Director Carney.
Thank you, President Inojo's Pressey. I'm guessing from my very limited electrical knowledge that the what were we just calling it? We're
The
talking about
tombstone?
wiring it in place instead of the tombstone. I think that that is an efficiency in addition to the improvement from fluorescent bulbs to LED bulbs, only based on the conversations I had in purchasing a home about the load on a circuit. So that part sounds good to me. You mentioned the temperature of the light. Are we talking about like surgical studio versus candlelight dinner temperature, or is it actually a heat?
No, it is actually the color of light, so.
It is.
Like if you look right above you, you'll see a yellow, that's more of an ambient, regular, standard white light. And then the bright ones that are like sheer white, those are daylight. It's considered a temperature. So you can go from yellow all the way up to white, blue, purple, and it's the wavelength. It's more science than I know, but it is actually a color of the light, not a temperature like heat.
Right, right. That's what I assumed you were referring to. And do we know where we are landing? Is this like, do we have a place where we are required to be in terms of brightness over in the purple?
Thank you
Or-
for the question, Director Carney. We are setting up 3 different temperatures for staff to go through and choose.
Okay.
Instead of putting a different temperature in everybody's workspace, because we have a lot of cubicles, so that'd be kind of challenging, we're going to choose the one with the most likes. We'll choose that. I did weigh in with our project management office that I'm going to be a little bit firm on the shop because the lights are about 20 feet in the air, and brighter is better in a shop because shadows create trip hazards, and again, the lights are 20 feet above them, so we want nice, bright aisleways and so forth. But in the office space, in my past experience, a lot of it's been on the cooler side because it's not quite as, fluorescent lights, when they have the buzz, they flicker, and they're really intense. And there are people everywhere I've worked, unscrewed light bulbs, turned light switches off, and that sort of thing. So I can't guess where we will go, but I would wager we're going to be on the cooler side, so a softer light. That'd be my guess.
Well, I certainly trust staff to make the decision that works best, and there will be no more unscrewing bulbs because they will be hardwired.
Okay. So bringing it over to the science portion of the evening, Director Duncan?
I'm not going to do that. You actually did a good job. I was just going to say, as somebody who has a light-sensitive disability, and this probably seems like a absolutely ridiculous conversation we are having, thank you for having it. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to talk with management about lighting because it precludes me from doing my job. So thank you for involving the staff and doing our best. I'm glad to hear that we're replacing the fluorescent lights. And thank you for, like I said, involving the staff in this process. Yeah, the warmer toned lights definitely. There's a lot of studies behind the science in workplaces to improve people's comfort, eye strain, and just feeling good in the workplace. So thank you very much. That helps promote our culture that we want to have here. That's all.
And as a caveat to that, because I've heard complaints around how white our lights are inside of our buses, is that maybe an assessment that we could make while we're undertaking this as well?
We could look at that for sure.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
I move that the board authorize the general manager to amend the contract with Apex Mechanical for the installation of LED lighting with a project and contingency amount not to exceed $158,000.
I second.
Motion a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to our informational reports, a service briefing for May 2026.
Sure. So this month, Chief Ulazum will present the report.
Good evening, President Enos Presi and other board of directors. Generally, our service planning manager, Chris French, he does this, but he became grandfather last week, actually, of two beautiful twins, so congratulations to him. I'm here to present the May 2026 service change. So the issue is, shall the board receive a briefing regarding the Cherriots fixed route service beginning May 3rd, 2026? And this service will take effect on Sunday, May 3rd, and remain in place until Saturday, September 5th, 2026. In this time frame, there is no major change. We have identified and analyzed Route 6 runtime, and the on-time performance for Route 6 is slightly below our agency performance goals of 85%. And our team analyzed mostly the afternoon session using our KDVL system and all the runtimes. So there is no new addition of time or no addition of revenue hours. We have just adjusted our runtimes to make sure that we can improve our on-time performance. The recommendations were based on the analysis from the data that we have received from Avail. And so there is no new net change, and we're hoping that this will improve the on-time performance and customer experience moving forward. In this time frame, we have 3 holidays, and Memorial Day, Juneteenth, and Independence Day, and we will have Saturday level service on all those 3 days. That's pretty much it. My team gave me 60 seconds to complete this. Hopefully, I did it. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? No questions? Yes, Director Duncan.
Just a comment, I know I made a big fuss about the number 6, and I really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Duncan.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, so that moves us into our reports. General Manager's report.
Great, thank you. So I know a couple of you will talk about Representative Salinas' tour. I just wanted to update everyone. So you've all received a copy of the press release. Our social media has promoted the tour, as well as Representative Salinas' staff has promoted the tour on social media. So I'm really here to say thank you to the staff for organizing the tour and presenting the information to her from. I'm really sorry I missed it, but I heard it was a good event, so thank you. Also, earlier this week, Governor Kotek, if you haven't heard, announced the work group, the Rebuilding Our Transportation Vision Work Group. She announced the leadership team, and their goal is to develop a framework for comprehensive transportation package for the 2027 legislative session. The co-chairs are former Republican lawmaker Bruce Hanna and transportation leader Grace Crunican. So if you don't know who Grace Crunican is, former ODOT director, former CEO at both in Seattle Transportation Department, as well as San Francisco's Bay Area Rapid Transit BART system. Well-known in the transit industry. I think between the two of them, they will lead that group to their goals. They have not yet announced the membership of the work group, but they have announced the leadership. And the important part of the work group goals for us is really to provide a framework for transportation package that can pass in the 27 session that supports public safety, economic development, prioritizes affordability for Oregon's and rebuilds transportation future, which includes the Highway Trust Fund and the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. So between myself and our CFM team, we'll be monitoring the actions of that committee closely. They're scheduled to have their kickoff meeting sometime in April. In addition to that, since the last meeting, this is the season for State of the Local Government time. So several of us and I also attended the Salem and Kaiser State of the City events. I'd like to thank Mayor Clark for acknowledging and recognizing Cherriots in her remarks. Next week, the State of the County for Marion County is being held. And this past weekend, I did attend the APTA CEO seminar, which is the annual meeting where the CEOs get together and really get the chance to let our guard down and commiserate with each other.
Play
What?
golf.
Yeah,
They're
no
playing golf.
golf. No golf. Watching it a little on TV. But what I can tell you is how fortunate I feel after listening to some of the issues that some of the other CEOs are going through, that Cherriots is a great organization and is a good spot. And so I always feel grateful for that. Upcoming events for me, I'll be attending the OTA, the Oregon Transit Association Board Retreat, in a couple weeks, and then several of us will be attending the APTA Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C. You also received in your email the finalist names for the yard tug contest. So if you want a chance to chime in on the best name for the new yard tug, please submit your picks by April 6th, and we'll make that announcement. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go with Director Navarro.
Thank you, President Hinojosa Pressy. I'll make mine short because I'm feeling a little under the weather. Not how I wanted to start spring break. But yeah, so sorry I can't be there with you guys tonight. But yeah, so I did get a chance to attend Kaiser's State of the City earlier this month. And like General Manager Pollock stated, Mayor Kathy Clark did a really great job just kind of presenting about what Kaiser's doing as far as housing and supporting businesses and coming to our community. But she also gave a shout out to Cherriots, which is something that I really appreciated. Folks recognizing how important transportation plays in the roles of our community. And with that, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Director Carney.
Thank you, President Hinojosa Pressy. Let's see, earlier this week, it hardly seems it was just earlier this week, but on Tuesday, I met with the SCATS Policy Committee. And one part of the conversation that I wanted to bring to this group has to do with a change in, and I hope that I'm accurately representing this. I'm trying to look at their staff report right now so that I can. A change in the amount of money that ODOT provides to the COG to support SCATs. And so for the PL funds, which is what, planning something, maybe Shofi, if you have it pop in your mind, you can help me out. But they used to provide 100%, ODOT did. And now, given the financial constraints ODOT is finding itself in, they're saying, we can only provide 50% of that amount of money. You're going to have to come up with the other 50%. And so the SCATS share equals $39,453 this year. And so if we were to break that cost out and have each of the policy committee jurisdictions, including transit and the school board, pay, but not ask Turner to pay as much because Turner's really little, they're down there, then the match for us and for each jurisdiction would be $8,088 plus for the PL funds, so that I wish I'm gonna have to scroll up in my staff report to get all these acronyms unpacked. The federal STBG funds.
Surface Transportation Block Grant.
Thank you.
And PL is just planning.
Yeah, okay, I had planning right. Okay, so the Surface Transportation Block Group funds is the 8,800. And then the other amount is for the planning funds. So that's the 5,636 per SCATS member. And that is really to support the work of the COG, right? In developing the Unified Planning Work Program and all these federal documents that we got to put together as an MPO and get them out. So if they broke that apart, the cost to, each jurisdiction, I have that in my notes, would be $13,724. But Polk County is not feeling like that is a cost they are willing to support. And so they think the surface transportation block group funding is a good amount for them to pay, but the planning sum is a cost they are unwilling to bear. And so now there is conversation about how or if the other jurisdictions involved in supporting the COG and creating this match in order for us to continue our work. If we are willing to bear our $13,724 and then Polk County's, what, $4,000 to $5,000 divided by 6, I think, because that's how many jurisdictions would remain. And I said it was a conversation that, it was a decision that I could not make independent of a discussion. And I said that I would bring that discussion to this meeting.
So do we want to briefly,
Point of clarification.
okay, Director Duncan?
Does that mean Polk County would be leaving the SCAPS committee?
Yeah, to my understanding, that would require an update of the cooperative agreement, which is not part of the discussion.
So they just want to opt out of paying their portion and have us all pay it instead?
That, I think, accurately reflects the situation, with their reasoning being that there has been very little investment in the Polk County portion of the MPO. That said, our chair, Lyle Mordhorst, who represents Polk County, is, frequently reminding us of the numerous regional benefits to the work we do within the policy committee and accomplished through the TIP, and how we need bear that in mind consistently, because it is a matter of supporting the region, not just the individual entities within it.
Director Davidson.
Hi, thanks. I'm sympathetic to the fact that we have some really small jurisdictions within the MPO, and that they are having to pay a disproportionate amount given their geographic size. Polk County, for example, the portion of unincorporated Polk County that is within the Metropolitan Planning Organization is probably, I'm willing to bet, under 10% of the geographic area. So it's quite small, so it's unsurprising that they're not getting a lot of projects within that small area, because West Salem, the largest urbanized area in Polk County, is within the MPO and thereby governed by the city of Salem. So I think representative contribution makes a whole lot of sense under a representative voting framework. If everyone gets an equal vote at a time of when funding is actually allocated, everyone should have an equal obligation to contribute when investment is needed. Now, it is very unfortunate that our legislative leaders could not see to adequately fund ODOT so that they could continue to provide a match for these PL funds, but they didn't. So that is the circumstance that we're in. And so as far as I'm concerned, any option that does not have equal investments would necessitate a reopening of the cooperative agreement.
Okay. Director Duncan, you wanted to say something?
What Director Davidson said. I want to second that. That was basically what I was going to say, but he said it much nicer. Good job.
Okay. I mean, I personally feel very invested in the fact that all these jurisdictions in the MPO have the funding to be able to ensure that we have appropriate infrastructure and safe infrastructure. So I mean, I find the ask for Cherriots to pay a little, like $13,724, is that what it was? To be fairly reasonable in order to support the staff to continue to do all the reporting and processing of all of this federal money to support the infrastructure. I'm definitely interested to see like what additional ask would come in if Polk County and other jurisdictions are unable or unwilling to pay their portion, because again, to Director Davidson's point, I mean, Almsville, Turner, and the Polk County area is very small. And I know that oftentimes, I remember in the not so distant future where Turner had to cancel one of their projects because it came with too many other costs that they could not afford. So I think just in this place of wanting to make sure that we have safe infrastructure for everyone, I think I find the ask fairly reasonable, regardless of the modification of the cooperative agreement or voting structure.
I think Director Duncan has a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I get to chair.
So does this put us in a rock and a hard place? Because previously, any type of amendments to the cooperative agreement have been basically a non-starter, and I know people have threatened to leave over it. So is what we're saying even reasonable, or is it going to cause all kinds of problems?
This is not a recommendation to modify the cooperative agreement. There was a conversation, I want to say 2 months ago, about that, because Almsville is still not a voting member, though that jurisdiction is included within the boundary of the MPO. Excuse me. So they continue to show up at all of the meetings, but not as a voting member. So there will need to be an update to the cooperative agreement at some point in the relatively near future. And this is just kind of an added factor onto it, because now we have a voting member who is included in the cooperative agreement saying, I am unwilling to pay what these other jurisdictions are paying, or I am unable to pay what these other jurisdictions are, but I prefer to retain all of the same privileges that the other jurisdictions enjoy.
I know this puts you in a really difficult position as kind of our representative here. And like I said, Ian said it best, but knowing that right now we are not debating the cooperative agreement, just this one portion, I think that I would lean towards something that was equitable. You know, I think that maybe 0 may be a little difficult to get behind for everybody, because what's stopping any other group from just opting out because they feel they didn't get enough projects? Is there like if we have a year that we don't get any projects, does that mean we just don't pay? Like, that sets a very interesting precedent that I'm concerned about setting. But if we wanted to talk about, you know, size of jurisdiction, and which we have specifically tried to before with the cooperative agreement, talk about size of jurisdiction and population represented, et cetera, I think that that would be more than appropriate to have that type of discussion. But if we can support that ideology in one place, I would be very interested to see it supported in other ways, as we have already had discussions with this body before and had them be quite volatile disagreements, which is why I know this is precarious to bring up. Yeah, I know that we are not the only voice here, but I think something that's equitable makes sense. I don't want to overburden small communities while also we all contribute some when there's a shared burden. I think at least would be a reasonable request.
Thank you, Director Duncan. The point that you are making about kind of an equitable or kind of share or cost being borne by jurisdictions who receive larger amounts of projects was a point that I brought up, and it was not viewed with favor, with the argument being this is a regional organization, and we really support the whole region. And so there was a lot of hesitation, including from SCAT staff, on looking, for example, at past project awards, you know, and Kaiser worried, like, well, gosh, what if we get Wheatland Road and this other one in 1 year, and we couldn't, right? That doesn't give you a predictable cost if you're looking. And so there wasn't an easy way that SCAT staff could see, and the other jurisdictions also were quick to point out that the benefits of all of our planning work and projects are regional and not specific to a jurisdiction.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the equitable piece would be in mind of the fact that, I mean, the budget that the city of Turner has is not the budget that the city of Salem has, be it all with its pitfalls and opportunities and what have you. So I think something in that regard would be good. I definitely do not want to stray into the land of it being correlated to like the amount of projects that folks have approved. And I also don't want there to be like a financial tie to also voting power. That also feels very disproportionate, especially again, like referring back to the fact that, you know, like our budget and the Salem Kaiser School District's budget is not the same by any means. Director Davidson, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I would just reiterate that MPOs across the country fail to represent residents in key ways related to housing and transportation. And we are emblematic of that. And until the cooperative agreement changes with the voting structure, we will continue to get the same results. And we will continue to see dozens of people die each year on our roads. In cars, outside of cars, we need a dramatic rethink. And until the incentive structures are aligned with that, guess what? Blood's on our hands. And so I think that this is where we once again and consistently bring up that the cooperative agreement is inherently inequitable. This is simply another opportunity for the board to state its case. Maybe we lose, but I want that argument had. I recognize that I'll be in the minority on this, but I just wanted to state that plainly. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I guess essentially like as also as the governing body, and Director Carney is asking for like direct input on what to, like how to represent the organization. So I think I can safely say that it is the will of this body to support the COG in costs. I think just maybe clarity on how we're wanting to get there.
Could you remind me, Sadie, or Director Carney, what the delta is between if we pay the divided by 7 or divided by 6 amount versus the, if there's only everyone but Polk County?
It's $5,000.
Yeah, it's like, it's,
$800.
yeah, it's not a,
So it's less than $1,000.
yes.
It is though, so, and Polk County is balking at how much? What's that dollar amount?
$13,724, no?
Yes, but they agreed that the STBG funds were a cost that they were willing to fund. That is the $8,088 per SCATS member. But for the planning funds, which is $5,636 per SCATS member, they were unwilling to make that financial, they could not come to agreement on that financial payment.
So at issue is $8,000?
No,
$5,000.
$5,000, okay. So I fully recognize that it is ridiculous to put up a fight over $800. It is equally ridiculous for a government to put up a fight over $8,000. And I speak as the former chair of the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments who orchestrated a jubilee for Polk County's debt to the COG. This is something that Polk County has been in a situation on before. And just to clarify the biblical term, a jubilee is when debt is forgiven. And so their debt was already forgiven. Yes, this is crazy that we're doing this over $800, but they're doing it over $5,000. And look, planning dollars are instrumental in shaping how we want our community to look. Like, this is quite literally an investment in our future. And if they're balking over $5,000 on an investment in our future, that raises some serious questions for me. And I think that I guess more importantly, when is the cooperative agreement, when is that trigger? There's an annual or biennial vote normally, right?
Yes, and it was, the last time it was adopted into the TIP, steer me back on, Shofi, if I get too far astray, there was no discussion. We did not agenda a discussion. We were still, I think, coming down off the heat of our recent discussions, and there was some firm representation from members of the policy committee that the outcomes we had previously agreed to would be difficult, if not impossible, to achieve a second time.
Yeah, this is like a case in point of a status quo bias, where we will continue to see the same outcomes because we're unwilling to change. We are, in Mark Ash's words, we're comfortable with existence as opposed to excellence. And I think that if they were unwilling to have that conversation at the appropriate time, I think it is more than welcome for us to bring it up now when, once again, the question of equity is brought up. It's financial kind as opposed to a representative voting kind, but it's still equity. And
So the question at hand is, what is the will of the board to bring into SCATS? Right, so the question is, would Cherriots be willing to pay $13,724 or potentially closer to
Plus.
14,000?
Yeah, plus the little share of Polk's cost that we would spread among the other jurisdictions. And what I'm hearing is, yes, that is a cost we are willing to support. However, I think some of the concerns that we have discussed are valid, such as, how does this factor in as precedent-setting behavior and decision-making? If we decided next year, under the leadership of a new general manager, hey, we can't afford it either. How would that conversation go? Is it like the camel's nose under the tent? I hate to throw that phrase around, but so I think that is a point for discussion among the group. And then I do think that it is an appropriate time to discuss the cooperative agreement, because it won't be far in the future that we do need to discuss it in terms of adding Almsville. And this exact case, right? This case that Polk County is bringing to our attention, and the need to kind of perhaps consider jurisdictions differently, is, I think, an important factor in our conversation there.
Okay, but currently, it's not that we will preclude paying the amount of money based on cooperative agreement or what have you. Director Davidson?
I'm comfortable right now having Cherriots cut the check for the $13,000 amount.
Okay.
I am not comfortable with cutting a check for the $14,000 amount until that conversation is had.
Okay. Director Duncan?
Having been in the room and had the double standard be on the other foot, I have to stand with Director Davidson. I'm not exactly in the mood to do favors for individuals who would not have done the same for us when we were asking for a similar situation.
Okay, is Director Navarro still on?
Yes, I am.
Director Navarro, do you have an opinion on the matter?
I think I agree with the opinion of what I've heard so far from the board, from Director Duncan, Director Davidson.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. I'm in the minority there, but we have the majority giving you your marching orders, Director Carney.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Cool.
But I'm not done. Sorry. Right, staff was like, let's get, no. Just an additional note on the SCATS Policy Committee, we also had the opportunity to offer comments and suggestion on the project evaluation criteria and goals, which I bet nobody is surprised that I did. And so Ray did not have enough time with his days out of the office and a few technical difficulties to incorporate them all in. So they are listed as suggestions in the packet, and we will review them next month. To let this group know my approach to that, I looked at the Metropolitan Transportation Safety Action Plan that we approved, I want to say August 24, and tried to pull in elements related to our high crash corridor and the streets in the network that are affected by that, and ways to just elevate both transportation and pedestrian active user safety, and some elements of equity in the process. And so I'm hopeful that the group will be receptive. And then we had a great big update to our tip with the $3 million that we received in federal grant money for the South Salem Transit Center. And that was approved. And I will end my report with that, isn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Okay, Director Davidson?
Thank you, President. I think it was, at the beginning of the month, we had the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments annual dinner and annual meeting. During that meeting, there are awards presented for recognizing somebody who is an employee of a public agency, recognizing somebody who is an elected or appointed official of a public agency, and then a regional project of significance, and then the chair each year has an opportunity to recognize an individual or an entity of their choosing. Since 2001, when the COG started doing awards, it has the vast majority of the years, so the last 25 years, it has only awarded those 4 awards. On incredibly rare occasions in the 25-year history, on only 2 occasions prior to this year has a Lifetime Achievement Award been given. I am very happy to announce that on behalf of the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, Alan Pollock, our General Manager and CEO, received that distinguished recognition. And so in honor and recognition of his significant service to the Mid-Willamette Valley, the board and that organization that represents 3 counties and 40 governments and 1 tribe recognized Alan Pollock for his 19 years of service. And I had the opportunity of providing remarks about that. And I acknowledge that our mission at Cherriots is to create community connections, and that I thought that Alan Pollock, as our general manager, exemplified that. And so I just want to state that in this venue that we're quite lucky to have you as our general manager. So congratulations. That concludes my report.
Okay, and Director Duncan?
It was a busy month, but most people already covered things, so I'll keep it brief. Thank you to the, I really enjoyed State of the City for Kaiser, State of the City for Salem. Those are some of my favorite events all year. Looking forward to the county, and the COG dinner was fantastic. I did cry. Thank you so much for everything. MWACT, we are working on a top list of projects because of constraints that ODOT has, as we've already discussed. Very few of those projects, unfortunately, have to do with things that Cherriots is concerned of. One of them, though, is the 3rd bridge, and so we're continuing to advocate to keep that on the list. So controversial Salem lore, but just never stop advocating for that 3rd bridge. And that's kind of all I have to report. Thank you so much.
I think on my end, I'll just also uplift Congresswoman Salinas' visit. It was really enjoyable with all staff, and we were able to, Congresswoman Salinas obtained $3 million for our South Salem Transit Center project, and just really excited to be able to continue moving forward and potentially breaking ground. to be able to provide excellent service in South Salem, and hopefully folks no longer have to route all the way to downtown. Soon, very soon, we'll get there. It was really great to get to tour also the Del Webb facility and show her Electric Avenue, and she got to drive one of our new electric buses.
Drove it?
Yeah,
Amazing.
she drove the bus under the care and guidance of, yeah, in the yard.
Director Carney, if you give us $3 million, we'll let you drive a bus too.
And it had her name on it, so we'll throw your name on it too, you know? Just $3 million. So I think that was a really great visit and enjoyed by all. And I don't have anything else to report, so thank you very much. It is now 6:56 p.m. and we are adjourned.